All right, so we might get started since everyone is here that we're expecting to be here. So I'll start by acknowledging that the land we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. And we acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region and that their cultural heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Roll call. We have everyone except Councillor Fraser, who is an apology. Are there any motions to grant leave of absence? If not, there's no leaves of absence and no non-attendance. So next up is public open forum. So is there anyone aside from if you're already going to speak on an item, is there anyone who'd like to speak in the public open forum? You just get a few minutes to talk up on the microphone if you'd like. Otherwise, we will move on to declarations of interest. Mayor?
Thank you, Chair. Item 7.3, I'll be declaring an interest in leaving the room. Thank you.
Any other declarations of interest? If not, confirmation of minutes of the last meeting. From the 8th of September, is that, that's the one, isn't it? Because we didn't have quorum last time. 14th of July? Yeah, 14th of July, and we'll confirm, Councillor Hughes and a seconder, Councillor Goldstone. All in favour? Against? Carried. So sorry, was it because we had a September one? No. Okay, sorry, we talked to the band, yeah. Sorry, didn't have quorum. So next up is, let's take a look. Officers. Business arising from minutes. Does anyone have business arising from minutes? Otherwise, we'll move on to officers' reports. 7.1 policy review for banners, brand and community grants. Mayor and Councillor Hughes, anyone to speak?
Just briefly, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to move this officer's recommendation. I think I'll take the report as read. The policies have been updated. I think they're quite comprehensive and I'll leave it at that. Thank you. And
would you like to speak?
Just really briefly, agree the policies are comprehensive and they've worked really well in the past, and with the update to some of the dates and things like that, I'm quite happy to recommend the council.
Any other speakers? If not, I'll move. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Next up, we get to the community garden proposal, which there's, I believe, quite a few people here from the proposal in the gallery here. So, hello. So, would the representative like to come up to the microphone? Yeah, so you're able to adjust it?
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's okay? Everyone can hear?
It's a little quiet. Can you make it face towards you? There you go.
Better? Hopefully. First, I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity for me to talk. My name's Deborah Nelson. I've lived in and around Gawler for over 30 years. I currently work at the U3A Kapunda Community Garden. I've done 2 years of research on community gardens, a lot of reading, obviously, and you name it. The research has shown clearly what works and doesn't work for community gardens. One of the main things that was very clear was that the most successful community gardens were strongly supported by their councils. Each community garden is different. I've visited and contacted a lot of community gardens. Due to COVID, unfortunately, I was unable to hold a large public meeting, so I went online. As a result of that, we have over 130 local people interested, which I think is great. We already have some donations of both public and businesses of raised beds, irrigation, chairs, ceilings, officer help, excuse me, with erecting fencing, workshops. People want to buy excess produce, supplying compost, materials, gardening products, and more. My main focus has been on getting a committee form, which we now have, I'm happy to say, and also on obtaining suitable council land, which is why we're here tonight, one of the reasons. We have a committee of 8 dedicated people who have a variety of different skills. We have decided to partner with the Gawler Environment Centre, Kathy Witter, who's been fantastic. They'll be our incorporated body. They'll cover our insurances, help with grants, promoting us, help with advice, all that sort of thing. I've had a meeting with the Mayor and Councillor Diane Fraser. I was very happy with their help and support. Thank you both. I know Diane's not here, but thank you. I then contacted Linda Wees, I hope that's how you pronounce her name, at the council, who's been a great help and support also, and supplied me with documents. I looked at all council land that was available and suitable, and then submitted the expression of interest form. We would, however, like to change on that form by making Humphrey George Reserve at Evanston Park our first preference for many different reasons. The main ones being the location. The other one is quite out of town, as you probably are aware. Financial, it would be a lot less costs for us to be in that area. There's a lot of things already set up. The security would be far better there. The access to the area, including public transport, that is available there. And there's room to expand, whereas the other one, there isn't, obviously. Environmental, there's an established playground, which is huge. Draw other people in, obviously. Far better car parking. The safety issues are far better, including a lot less snakes, I hope, in that area. The toilet use in the library is actually quite limited. Obviously down the track we'd like to get a toilet, but yeah, that's way down the track yet, early days. The purpose of a community garden is to bring people together, to socialise, give people a place to go, meet new people, share knowledge, learn and teach each other and our community with workshops and just people coming in general. Improving health, both mental and physical well-being. Total inclusion, including being disability friendly, which is absolutely huge to me. It's about environmental sustainability, recycling, being water-wise, composting, being organic, having a balanced ecosystem, using heirloom seeds, attracting beneficial insects and wildlife, all those things. And about sharing healthy produce, sharing the joy of gardening in general. The benefits to council is that It shows that they are progressive, which I know we are, or you are, and that you're socially aware of people's needs and wants. Shows that you listen, care, not just about politics, it is about community. The community gardens fall under many of the council's initiatives in the current Community Plan 2030 plus, such as health and social wellbeing, supporting recreational facilities, supporting volunteers, improving disability access, promoting inclusion, promoting lifelong learning. We'd like to see the council being able to support us with a peppercorn lease and possibly a grant to help us get started. Soil testing, supplying mulch, contribution to utilities. That, however, will be significantly reduced in the future as we implement more water-wise practices with irrigation, large rainwater tanks, and hopefully using solar and wind power as funding becomes available. I'm trying to make it as short as possible, so I thank you for your time. And I'm not sure if you've got any questions for me.
Thanks. So do we have any questions? Councillor Tooley?
Hi, Debbie.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You don't get any argument from me.
Wonderful.
I'm the councillor that's been putting forward these motions and getting us to the point where we've got the policies in place, and I've been advocating this for
Wonderful.
years.
Thank you so much.
The one thing it's lacked is a community group, so thank you for getting the community group together. That is fantastic. I do have a question. You made a point about, and I've done a lot of research before I started moving the motions to bring this council to the point where it had its policy. Visited an awful lot of community gardens, promoted an awful lot of Facebook with Transition Gawler. And one of the things that was standing out was that the community gardens, to be really successful, need to be central, need to be accessible, and particularly successful when they're close to where there may be a group of elderly residents or residents that live in high density where they can walk across and get them.
Yep.
So my question is, why is Goose Island not your number one pick? Because it's the most central of everything.
I had, as you would read, I did have it down. Sorry. I had already been told that it's definitely in a flood zone, sorry, which is obviously would cost us a lot more to set up. And obviously if something happened, we've lost a lot and have to start over again. There were other areas that were also in floodplains, as you would have seen. There was contamination with a lot of sites, which also we can work around with raised beds and different things. The preference obviously would be not to have to. Goose Island, I agree, would have been a fantastic area. But yeah, unfortunately, that was also something where, from reading what, after we put it in.
If the floodplain issue turned out to not be an issue, would that be your first port of call if it could happen?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Beautiful.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
It is a floodplain.
Yes.
And there used to be a dump there. So it is a floodplain. You can't not clarify it's not a floodplain.
Yeah. Well, but it's not a.
Thank you, Debbie, for your presentation. Just a question, in our documents we've got a recommendation to support Evanston Gardens library land.
Yep.
And you've changed your mind
Yes.
to Humphrey George, which is a park. I don't quite understand. I am a bit concerned that there'd be a bit of opposition to that from the community who uses that park, but I just want to hear your sort of thoughts around that.
As I said, the reasons were put a great big thing together, but I knew I had limited time, so I couldn't tell you. The research has shown that majority of successful ones, community gardens, are located within suburbs or towns that are surrounded with residents living nearby or have a lot of foot traffic. Evanston Gardens doesn't have that, regards local people being close, actually living there. Yes, it does have the school, obviously, but with it being people living nearby, all the research I've done has showed that, and we have been contacted by people living in that area who are very happy for us to have it there, but the research has shown that there's a real sense of pride when people are around there, and Evanston Gardens is so out of town. A lot of people have just said, we don't want to drive all the way there. To me, it's not far, but but there are other reasons. As I'd said, the main one obviously is also financial, with a lot of different things. Thanks. There's a lot of, with it being such a large area, obviously it gives us room to expand later, and some of the gardens that have expanded have been amazing. Kate comes from one in Queensland, and absolutely incredible what they've done there, and many others as well. And there is no room for expansion there at all. Aesthetically, with the Gawler River running next to it, a lot of native plants, beautiful trees. I've also been informed by people that did it themselves that school children have planted trees there. The school is down the road from there that the children have planted, so there's already that sense of pride as well. And children, which is obviously huge, we want to get families there. Hence the playground is also a major bonus. So, we would like to have a playground, obviously, to get the families there. So with it already having one set up, it's huge. Environmentally, obviously, it's quite appealing with everything being native, and it would cost us less regards having to plant the surrounding area. With it having the car park that's there, it is a much nicer car park. We really want to get wheelchair, disability-friendly wheelchairs there, people with, families with pushers, strollers, anybody with difficulty walking is huge, whereas the car park at Evanston is very uneven, and it will cost us quite a lot to get that looking accessible for those people. It's huge, obviously, if you're disabled. There is public transport that is actually on an existing bus route there. I have been told that there is a minibus, though, that will take you anywhere in Gawler, which is wonderful. But that is the only area that had an existing bus route, which obviously we're trying to be inclusive with everyone. That's huge. Not everybody has a car. The crime, vandalism, wouldn't be such an issue because there are houses nearby, so there'd be better security, reducing our costs, obviously, if something happened and we've got to start again with anything. Snakes, obviously, an issue, although I love snakes personally. Not so much in the garden, but yeah. The library, although there is the library there and they do have wonderful toilets, public toilets there, it's not open very much at all, unfortunately, which would have been good, but yeah, because obviously a toilet is also another huge issue. We've community gardens and people, because majority want a toilet for obvious reasons. Overall, the cost will be reduced substantially. So less funding would be required, and the community gardens will be completely up and running much quicker from all those things.
Sure. Do you still have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks. Look, just again on Humphrey George Reserve, what percentage are you looking at originally, and have you considered the community consultation that would be required around that?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the space, it's a fairly big space.
Yes.
What percentage of that space are you looking at? And also, have you factored in community consultation with the residents, for example?
That is something we were waiting to hear, if we could have the land or not, whether it would even be an option. We weren't sure, because we do know that it had been earmarked for other things as well, including the irrigation that is there at the moment with their lawns. The area that we were hoping to get, when I've been there several times, the irrigation is not in that area. It's much closer to the riverbank area, and it is clearly the water is not reaching there. It's not green in that area at all. So we wouldn't be having to cut into any of the irrigation systems. So it's because it is such a huge area, that's why we thought being closer to the river and a walkway, again, accessibility, it would not be very much at all compared, because it is such a large area.
So just another question. How many hectares, or what exactly, how much of that park are you looking to use exclusively for a community garden?
Again, that depends on what we're able to have. I'm old school, so I don't know how things are. The community gardens range from being absolutely tiny to acres. Obviously, we're not going to want that whole area, and that would be unrealistic. We would want maybe an eighth of it, if that. I'm trying to think terms. I don't understand all their things now. But yeah, the area that's closer to the river, as I said, that isn't getting the irrigation there. I do understand that it was earmarked for a basketball court, I think it was, something. But the area is so large, I think we could quite clearly be able to manage everything in that area. It is quite a large area.
Sure. Could I just get some clarification from staff? I think it was Linda who wrote the report. It seems like this was listed as a potential option, just not the number one option that staff chose. But is it still a? Could you just speak about its viability, I guess, as an option? This Humphrey George Reserve.
Through the chair. Staff met recently to go through the list of proposed sites that were provided by the Debbie and the group. Obviously, you can see in the report that 6 of those sites were put aside for varying reasons. And then we just went through the other 4 and established pros and cons for each of those. So originally the group said that Evanston Gardens was their preference, but I believe that they met on Saturday just gone and as a group had their first committee meeting, and going through the report, they had a copy of the report and have decided that Humphrey George Reserve was now their number one preference as opposed to Evanston Gardens.
Sure. And it is one of the viable options that staff okayed as being a potential option though?
It's one of the 4 that is a potential option, yes.
Yeah.
Out of that table of the 10 original.
Sure, that meets land use requirements and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Correct.
All right. Councillor Tooley? Which motion would you like to move?
With an amendment, I'd like to move it so that we change the Evanston Garden Library land to Goose Island, and I'll explain why, and I've done some homework today regarding that matter. So I'd like to make the recommendation that it has Goose Island as number 1.
You can present it. Yeah, we'll see if it gets a seconder, etc.
Okay, thank you. And so that none of my colleagues go into a conniption over floodplain, you can build on a floodplain. In fact, Gawler has many sites where we've built on a floodplain. And I'll give you some examples. If you go to Debnaz Pass, the structures that we've built, the shelters, where we recently evicted a homeless man, that shelter and shelters like that are built in the floodplain. If you go to Clonley, the toilet block is built on the floodplain. If you go to the caravan park is established on the floodplain. The swimming pool facility in its lower ends is built on the floodplain. And I see one of my colleagues shaking his hands, but the research I did today was to go to a gentleman called Mr. Ryan Viney. And I spent a long time on the phone with Mr. Viney today to find out where is the floodplain and what we're allowed. And he said to me quite clearly, you can build on a floodplain. And I also said to him, we recently built a structure called a skate park. And we built a skate park on the floodplain. And with that skate park, we also built some significant infrastructure. We built a shelter, we built seats, we built barbecue, we put them in that area. We also put footpaths and we put a bridge. And the walkways in the last flood in 2018, when the water came up through that area, all the debris hit up against that footbridge. And because the footbridge was designed, the footbridge sustained that. And I reinforced that with Mr. Viney today. I said, can you GPS this, check the heights, check the level? And he did all of that, got on there and said, yep, we built that skate park, one of our most recent structures, in the floodplain, on the floodplain. I asked him then to check the area of Goose Island. And if you look at the top of Goose Island, that large flat area, which is very, very accessible and very, very central, that very flat area adjoins several houses, which have rarely flooded. Because of the flood mitigation that we now do, that area rarely gets floods. The water did not come up to those houses in 2018. I've been here for the floods in 92, 94, and the most recent one, 2018. I've witnessed those and I've seen those floods. And even that area at the top of Goose Island has rarely been flooded. The area also is extremely fertile, which is why when you look at the interpretive plaques, when you walk along there, you'll see the Chinese gardens. And the Chinese gardens were established there as the most stunning gardens, and they produced a lot of fruit and vegetables for the town of Gawler. They got washed away in the early floods when we didn't have the flood mitigation that we have now. But the beauty of that is that the infrastructure that gets washed away is so minimal that it's very easily replaced. And as the caravan park does, when floods come, they get the warnings, they move the caravans on the lower levels to the higher sites. We also do the same thing in any of our infrastructure that we need to move. So moving a few items with enough warning would be easy to do if that were a problem. But the sort of infrastructure that a community garden wants is not at risk from a flood. The other advantage of Goose Island is if you wanted to put a toilet in, the toilet sewer is at the end of the road. There is parking, it's a wide street. We've also opened up a section of that. If you remember, for overspill parking, we opened that area, we advertised it earlier this year. A large, accessible, flat area on the top. If you did not want to put a toilet there is hope that we might save the Walker Place toilets. And you'll notice that there's a very, very short walk from that section of Goose Island across a bridge And you are then at the post office, you're at the cafes, you're at the toilet, very accessible for people. The other thing about Goose Island is it's very flat, it's very walkable, and it's in an area where there are a lot of people living in homes and small units, the sort of people who don't have a garden, the sort of very people that actually would love to go into a community garden. And being central in the town and visible, it is the most perfect place. And as you heard today, I asked the people if that was their preferred option. They said it clearly was. But unfortunately, they were given information with a blanket wash that said floodplain. And as you've heard one of my colleagues, you can almost go into conniptions, floodplain, floodplain. The other thing I found out is that the block of land, which is opposite Clonley, which is designated in floodplain, the land adjoined to Mr. Sid I's property, you can build on the top part of the road.
20 seconds.
But you can't build houses down the bottom. But you could build a cricket pitch. You could build an RV park. You can build any of those structures in that area that is allowable on a floodplain. And this, I welcome anybody to check this with Mr. Viney. This is his portfolio. So can you build on the floodplain? Yes, you can. Therefore, can you have a community garden on Goose Island? Yes, you can.
So does that have a seconder? Councillor Little, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, I agree partially on most of what Councillor Tooley says. The 83 flood, which was pretty bad, I was living in Gawler, did circumnavigate that whole area pretty badly, but it destroyed it. But since I can remember setting up a command post at the RSL when I was in the police force, but since we built the levees, the council did a marvellous job there. The 96 flood didn't impact on that area much at all. It impacted a bit, but not like it did in 83. The one in 2018, it's the same thing. I can see where he's coming from. Personally, to me, I think duck flats, underutilised. To me, it's just an area I remember as a kid coming here back in the 50s. It was the remnants of a wall where we used to have swimming in there. I used to swim in the Gawler River. I wouldn't try it now. You must get some parasite or something get you, but those days you could. So it is an area that I think is underutilised. So I can see there be some, I would say, some limitations, but I think if the structures weren't too well engrossed in the ground, gardens can be revegetated like they did out at Anglebar with the floods. Within 6 months, they're booming again with assistance. So I'm quite happy to second the motion and see how it runs. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other speakers on this motion? Mayor?
I'm going to speak against the motion. Just a little bit about the flood. The most recent flood was the 1 in 20 flood. We're still waiting for the 1 in 100 flood. In 2005, I've got photographs of Goose Island. It was completely underwater. The most recent flood, when the South Para breached overnight, we had very little time to prepare our community. We did prepare our community, but very little time. So these floods can come quite quickly, particularly given that we've got 2 dams over our head, and particularly the South Para, which has just had its wall increased. Sid I, he refused, while he was alive, he refused to have any building on that particular land that's now up for sale, and there's a very good reason for that, because it floods. And he wouldn't have anybody building on that and being held responsible. So I knew Sid very, very well. So I don't think that's quite right that you can build on floodplain. You've got to build above the 1 in 100 year line. There is strict rules and it has to be quite high. So I'd be a little bit concerned about Goose Island and what can go on there. And when it does flood, everything moves with that flood. So whatever's built on there, even if it's removable, that will move downstream, as did the caravan parks in 1983 or 85 when one got stuck under the Williston Bridge. And I remember that because I saw it right next to my car as I drove over the Williston Bridge. There was a caravan stuck, floating. That's how high the water gets. And that wasn't a 1 in 100 year flood either. So we do need to be really, really careful when we start offering land to people and these people come in good faith. And I think we need to give a community garden every hope of success, and it will not be successful in Goose Island. And the other slight problem is it's an old dump. Now, you can mitigate that with raised beds, absolutely, but that costs extra money. So I can't support a Goose Island community garden. However, I do want to talk a little bit more about some of these other opportunities. Thank you.
Councillor Koch.
Look, I'll be voting against this. I've actually got a fair bit of experience in running community gardens, right from concept through to identification of land, doing soil analysis, etc., budgeting, and actually establishing them. So I've done that. I've established at least 2, maybe 3 community gardens. So I've actually got a lot of experience in that area. Goose Island is a floodplain area. And just looking at the infrastructure requirements that the community group is looking at, that includes a large shed with base pavers and concrete, rainwater tanks, pergola, compost, propagation area, fencing, paving, irrigation, toilets. They're all big capital items. For a group to flood-proof those items on that area, I think it might be, it'd be very, very expensive if you're looking at the 1 in 100. Also, on top of that, it was basically a dump, and we know that. And there was another area that we looked at a couple of years ago. It was behind the community house. When we looked at it, it was actually an old exercise, and it was contaminated. This area probably is contaminated as well. And there's other areas, for example, where the men's shed is, that was contaminated for an old dump, and they're not allowed to dig into the soil. That's part of their lease. Also, there's another block near the oval where now it was allowed to be built on, but the whole block had to be concreted over, so you couldn't actually dig into the ground. The last thing you want to do is have a piece of land that you cannot fully utilise. I'm a horticulturalist. I know a lot about soil science. I know a lot about how to grow plants. And the last thing you want is a soil that is contaminated or any remnants of contamination. You do not want it. You're starting 100 yards back. And to just think you can wave your hands and talk around it is providing false hope to people. And unfortunately, we get a lot of that in this council. So I can't support this. There are probably other areas that would be amenable to a garden, but your starting point is your soil. You need to have good, solid, sound soil, no contaminants. That's what you need. And I've been a horticulturist for over 40 years, and that's the one thing that you need to do is get your soil right. If you're looking at a floodplain where there's been contamination, and when there's a flood, you get contaminants coming down onto your area, flooding your area with whatever knows what, it's not going to be very successful, unfortunately. So, unfortunately, I can't support this, but I'll be happy to support other areas that have good soil and are flood prone and don't have all the impediments that this one has, because I'm concerned for your success, not just posturing. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes and Councillor Goldstone.
Yeah, I'd like to move an amendment to Humphrey George instead of Goose Island as an amendment.
I'll just get some staff advice. Does that count as an amendment? Yep. Yep, go ahead then.
Can I speak to it?
If you look at the rules for amendment, point of order, an amendment has to be asked of the mover and the seconder.
No, it doesn't. I'm actually moving a formal amendment, not asking. I'm actually moving a formal.
Can we check that, please?
Sure. Clarification?
So through the chair, Councillor Hughes is asking for a formal amendment. As he has not spoken to the motion, he is entitled to do that. And we just need to seek a seconder to that amendment who also has not spoken to the motion.
Can you show me the section, please, for amendments? What section in the legal procedures?
So the way I understand it, a variation is the one where you ask the mover and seconder whether they agree to it, and an amendment is what happens if the mover and seconder don't agree to it. But we can get official confirmation.
So through the chair, it's Division 2, item 13, amendments to motions.
So either way, it needs a seconder in order to progress. Is there someone who hasn't spoken who's happy to second? Do we have a seconder? Otherwise, the amendment will lapse. But we can still, if the motion fails, someone can call it alternative motion still. So yeah, just to clear it up, it will come to a vote on this, and if it passes, it passes. If it fails, someone will say, oh, you know, Humphrey George or Evanston, and we'll have the discussion again, basically. So, Councillor Goldstone?
Yeah, I sort of think we've gone from a fairly solid officer's recommendation, which I would have supported, to discussion now on 3 different sites. And I don't think there's enough information in the report to fully consider those other sites. It doesn't speak well of Humphrey George Reserve as an option, talking about it as being strategically not suitable. It's an irrigated recreation reserve. So in my mind, I'm thinking this matter should be deferred until there is a clear preference in terms of what site they actually want to pursue, because it seems to me a bit up in the air. I'm a bit confused about the whole matter, to be honest.
Sure. So I believe everyone has spoken. So if you'd like to close the debate, or sorry, just clarify. Yeah, and noted that the amendment's lapsed. Yep. And you'd like to close the debate?
Yeah, thank you. Let's clear up a couple of things here. Contamination. There's a lot of emotive language that if you believed it, you would think that the whole area is contaminated. That is purely a proposition. It's untested, it's unproven. It has been used for gardens before. At the very top end, that land adjoins people who grow fruit and vegetables in their gardens, right next door, on the other side of the fence. I would propose that that is where you would locate any infrastructure. And the infrastructure is not stitched down. The infrastructure that I've seen in many community gardens, and I know they've used the word sheds, etc., I've seen them use shipping containers, which just do not wash away. I've seen them use a very simple structure, an open structure that looks very similar to what we built. Please hear this, people. We built this structure at the skate park in the flood zone. We built it with barbecues and chairs. You can shake your head, we've done it. And in 2018, the waters came to that area. In 2018, and you guys go back to the 80s, I wasn't here, I might have been here, but 92, 94, 2018, the floods that came through, the house at the end of Sid I's house did not get flooded. It did not get flooded. It sits there. There's residents in that. One of our doctors used to live in that. That did not get flooded. The area at the top of Goose Island has rarely been flooded. It's had to be one of those massive floods. We now have flood mitigation. And the residents at the top, because of the flow of the river, again, if you know anything about the flow of rivers, the fast flow is on the outside. The inside is a slow flow and the sediments deposit, which is why it is the shape that it is. So the top area, there is no fast flowing. The waters may creep up towards the end of the road at Goose Island. They creep up. There is never, ever any fast flow. The fast flow is on the outside of the bend where it erodes the riverbank. It is a slow flow, and for the people where they have on occasionally been concerned, and there's been some sandbagging, it is a slow creep into that area. That is where your community garden infrastructure would be. And we can do a very simple test of the soil to see if it is contaminated. I hear these alarming things said about soil's contaminated, soil contaminated. If that was a dump, it was a dump a long, 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 long time ago. And the people have been able to build right next to it. And the flower wagon, they used to run all of their growing of their plants on that area and sell them because they owned that. That was their nursery. Do you remember that? That was their nursery in that area. And we've all been able to walk through there. We've held events there. We had a massive marquee with all the people there about 10 years ago. It was Zonta that ran that. And I agree with Mr. Councillor Little, that area is heavily underutilised. It should be a central, beautiful piece and a beautiful community garden, which may need nothing more than 1,000 square metres, maybe 2,000 square metres, which is a half an acre. It doesn't need a huge amount, and it can grow with popularity as people can easily access that area. To me, it is the most sensible place. We know it's the preferred place if they could get there. And let's just take this myth of it being a floodplain with all this catastrophic issue. If we had a flood in that area, it would be very rare. It would not be rushing water. It would not wash away the infrastructure. It wouldn't even wash away the garden beds. It's a slow creep on that. If you know anything about your geography, there is no fast running water at the top end. It's a slow creep if there was. And we as a council have built our own infrastructure in more flood subjective areas. This is just a nonsense to say that we don't. The skate park infrastructure, the sheds and structures down in Dead Man's Pass, all of those are in a lower section of the floodplain and in more direct line of the flood. More direct line of the flood. This will be adjacent to the people that live at the end of the road where Goose Island is. This is the preferred spot. I just hope that common sense, science, the information from our own executives in Ryan Viney would weigh into your ears rather than some stupid ideology or the fact that Ian Tooley said it, because if Ian Tooley said the world was round, I swear that some of you would declare it flat. That's the nonsense that happens in this chamber. So let's hope that common sense prevails.
So it's time for the motion to be put. All in favour? All against? The motion is lost. Division has been called, so if you're in favour, stand up and we'll call your names. In favour are Councillor Tooley and Councillor Little. Against are Councillor Kosh, Councillor Goldstone, Councillor Hughes and the Mayor. Sorry, have you got... What's that? Yep. All right, just, yep. Staff are just working on the division. Would you like to move a version of the motion, Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, I'd like to change the lost motion to Humphrey George and be able to speak to it just quickly if I can.
Sure.
I think it's a good idea to, and I commend the group, and I think you're doing really good work and they've got a committee and everything else, but actually I think the soil in that area, Humphrey George, is really good. I think the infrastructure's there. The area you're talking about near the creeks there is really good. The soil will be excellent. I don't think you'll have contamination issues. And I think, there will be community interest because it's a high profile area. And I think the whole process, Joe, if it's successful tonight, will then go out for community consultation as part of the process. So if there is some other issues that come up for this site that is deemed that it doesn't fit, I think that will come back to us and we can then look at another site. But I think it'd be really good to make a start because this has been many years in the making, and I think it'd be good to get this moving now, and hopefully the community around the reserve are in favour, and if there is any other hurdles that come up, work through. But I think this is a good proposal, and it's an established area. There's shade, there's parking, good soil and irrigation, and there is scope to expand even along that creek area, which won't impact on the playing surface as much either. So I think it would be a really good site. So yeah, happy to move it.
Sure. We're just going to get the wording updated to make it say Humphrey George. There we go. So do we have a seconder for that, Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Look, I'm happy to support this, but I'd like some further information on how much land for the section of land located at Humphrey George Reserve. I think this should be the subject of a further report back to Council confirming how much land, because we're just unclear as to how much land is going to be used. And I think that's really important, because if we can't clarify that. So just a question to staff through you, Chair, what is the process from here, and how will this committee be kept informed, and how will the community be kept informed of this process?
Through the Chair. So the next step in the process, regardless of site, is that the Community Garden Group submits an application to establish a community garden on council-owned or council-controlled land. So that application form has been developed, and that went to that was adopted at the council meeting in July 2018, when the community garden policy and expression of interest form was done at the same time. So that would be the next step, that we'd work with the community garden group to complete that application, and then they would submit that, and we would report back to council based on that application.
Yep.
So given this is community land, at what point will community consultation occur?
Through the Chair, I believe that community consultation would occur at a later date once council approved in principle that the site that the community garden could go on.
And he's happy to second, yep, and speak to it.
Yes, I'd like to congratulate the Debbie Nelson and the committee, the new committee, the Gawler Environment Centre, for all the work that you've done and collaboration that you've done. There's still a bit of work to go. It's really important that the community near this park are brought along the journey, because it is a very popular park, and I think if you can do that, I think this will be a great success. Certainly I'm keen not to see lots of fences around a community garden. I know that's very popular, but if you can do without fences, I think that would be fabulous. It is a really big park, and maybe starting small would be a wise decision.
Definitely.
So I'm happy to support this, and look forward to further reports when they come back.
Great. So do we have any speakers? Councillor Goldstone, Councillor Little, Councillor Tooley, Councillor Goldstone.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, I won't be able to support this. I think mainly because the report is so strong on the fact that it says it's strategically not a suitable site for the community garden. It's better suited for recreational activities, and it goes on. I'm going to go with what the recommendation in the comments in the report say, and I don't see, based on what it says in the report and the recommendations within it, I don't see how it can be supported. So unfortunately, I'll have to vote against this one.
Councillor Little.
Yeah, I'm the same frame of mind. I actually live near the park, and I don't want to change. So, and I like what Councillor Goldstone said. We employ officers to give us recommendations, and to me, that's not a viable position there, because there's walking trails and things there. There's a lot of wildlife. There is a lot of snakes. I know I saw a couple the other day, and you have to be careful where you do. It's a beautiful park. It was left there back in the old days of the Mono Para Council, but it was donated by Humphrey George Reserves area, some of the land. And I don't think it'd be that viable. You need our blocks of land in that area. I've got a block at 845 square metres. We don't need a community garden. And most of the blocks in that area are the same. I agree, but Councillor Tully said earlier that community gardens, where I've been involved before in Sydney, is where we lived in units, and we all had a block of land in between all those units, and we all got down and did something. I've got 845 square metre block. I'm not going to be wandering out and doing a community garden. I think the concept's a great idea. I was involved in one in Sydney way back in the 70s. Excellent, but we were in a small commune area, and I don't think the Humphrey George Reserve is a very good spot. Other than that, I agree with Councillor Goldstone in relation to what our officers have said to us, that it's mainly a recreational area, and I'll have to agree with that. Thank you.
Councillor Tully?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think if our officers had a chat with Ryan Viney about finding out the facts about floodplains, we may have found a very different recommendation. That myth about you can't build in a floodplain would have taken out, which would have meant that Goose Island would have gone in as a viable opportunity. We've got several problems with Humphrey George. It is an existing play area, recreational area. So you've got to come across, and it's an irrigated lawn in lots of it, I believe. So you've got to convince the people in there that they're happy to have the use of their site changed. You don't have that problem with Goose Island at all. The other thing with Humphrey George, I just Googled it here, it is nowhere near central. It is, as Councillor Little says, it's in a residential area where people already have gardens. They're not the sort of people that are going to necessarily wander into it. Therefore, the people who would use it from this group and others are going to have to commute there to it. It's counter to one of your foundation principles that they are located in areas which are central, easily accessible, and located to the very people who will use it. The people who struggle to walk, the people who perhaps are older and retired, the people who live in high density living areas. Perfect. And once again, this myth about contaminants, the Mississippi Delta, the Nile Delta and the Gawler floodplain Delta, we locate vegetable growing areas on that. Why do you think Virginia 2 wells and all of that exist? Because the floods bring nutrients. It's how God created it before we started farting around with artificial fertilizers. It is the natural fertilizer. Goose Island over the years, which is why our Chinese residents built their vegetable gardens there, was because it was rich in nutrients from centuries of the floods. And on that side of Goose Island, at the top end, again, if you know your geography, when water goes around a bend, it goes fast on the outside, it deposits on the inside, and you get eventually what's called an oxbow lake, where it cuts off. This is what would eventually happen in that area if you lived a century or two more. So the top end of Goose Island, the water flow is negligible. There is no erosion. It's deposition. It deposits. It does not wash away at the top end of Goose Island. It is the most perfect location. I cannot support this because there are too many hurdles. It's too far away. It's in an irrigated park. It is in the wrong dynamic because it's amongst people who already have normal house blocks. It's too far. It's not accessible. Do I support a community garden? Absolutely. I brought the motions to this council, has led this council to develop the policies. I'm an advocate for a community garden, but I've never been an advocate for one in the wrong area. I want it to be used. And that at Goose Island, you don't even have to build a toilet at this point. You can walk across. It's right in the centre. You can get a coffee. You get a sense of community, and we reactivate what is an unactivated area. So I don't know where we're going to go, because this, I hope, is defeated. It deserves to be defeated, but we need to come back. My only hope is that when it comes before council and we have a greater number of councillors there, that, again, those councillors will believe the science, the facts, and forget the ideology and the other stuff that gets in the way and vote for it to be on Goose Island. And then we'd have a goer.
Councillor Koch.
Unfortunately, I can't support this. I think the officer's report basically ruled it out. and it is a recreational area. I'm just looking at it at a Google map now and just looking at it. There's a lot of large trees there, and that will probably impinge. I mean, those big eucalypts do take a lot of nutrients and water out of an area. You have to put root barriers in, etc., etc. So I think that's an issue. I probably will mention Goose Island again. Yes, you do have an issue when you have floodwaters depositing pesticides, etc., from upper reaches. So it'd be fantastic, wouldn't it, to have a community garden that gets inundated by pesticides on a regular basis, so it's no longer organic. And there was, they actually filled the pug holes in there with a whole lot of refuge, so we don't even know what the heavy metals are, for example, what the contaminants are there. And it actually costs a fair bit to actually do that investigation. It's just not a wave your hand and it's magically disappears. The recommendation was Everton Gardens. I think that's probably, where I'd settle on it if that was the case, because that's probably, the soil's probably okay, although you do need to do an investigation, probably okay, but it is probably not in the best spot. Yeah, it's a hard one, it really is. I don't think Humphrey George is probably not the best one, and I think Goose Island will be ruled out with the fact that it's contaminated with those pug holes, and it will get flooded and deposited with pesticides and other things that are probably not very healthy for your children to eat. And also the Chinese garden was there before a lot of this, a lot of the upper reaches with the pesticides and herbicides, etc., were able to be washed down into that area. And they actually left because they got flooded out, so that just says a lot anyway. So anyway, I won't be voting for this. Thank you very much.
Well, I think everyone's spoken again. So, Councillor Hughes, did you want to close the debate?
Yeah, I was just wondering, because Debbie's been waiting there patiently, whether I could ask a question, please, regarding the siting on Humphrey George. Whereabouts in the reserve is it? Are you thinking the north sort of western corner or along the creek area, or that's right?
As I mentioned, yes, definitely along the creek area where the irrigation is not reaching.
Yeah.
So there wouldn't be that issue.
Yeah.
We also would start clearly quite small, be it 1,000 square, whatever, and then that's successful, then we proceed and we extend. But until then, obviously, we would only want a small section and definitely not where the irrigation is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think everyone's commended you on your group, and whatever the motion comes out tonight, don't be disheartened, and we will eventually find a site for you in the town somewhere. But I do think that you did sort of passionately state a lot of reasons for this site at Humphrey George. It is a lot. Easier access for your members, bus stop right next door. You've already said you've got some community interest from locals adjoining that area, which I think is really important, where I don't think you're going to get that same local interest, unfortunately, at the library site. It's a bit far away. And you're not going to get that at Goose Island, really, I don't think either. So I think having that constant surveillance with neighbouring properties is really important, which you mentioned as well. Easy wheelchair access, good car parking, which it's got. I think you should be able to plug into the irrigation. And if you wanted to put a toilet in, even plug into the existing sewer system, it would be there eventually once the garden was really going and successful. So I think it's worth a go. This is just a first sort of stepping stone, I suppose, in the whole process. So if the proposal doesn't get through consultation or something else, we can look at another site as well. So I'm hoping that councillors will support this just to get it moving, and then if just so we've actually got a site for the group and a process to actually put an application in for, where if this fails, we don't actually have a site for the group to actually investigate at all. So I think this would be a good process to go down. So I would like councillors please to support it. Thanks.
All right, so we take it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? It is lost. Round 3. Mayor, I'd like to move the motion.
I'll move the officer's recommendation. Back to square one. Okay, if I can speak, is that all right, Chair?
Yeah, just updating. So this is the Evanston Gardens one.
The officer's recommendation.
Yeah, just making sure it's up on the motion.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Go ahead.
I'll wait till it's up, so we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, you're in luck. You get to hear the debate 3 times. So three times the value for money.
That's not it. That's not the right one.
Yeah, you can feel free to sit down.
Which is what I'm going to do now. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So I'll present this officer's recommendation. I think that the debate's actually been really useful, and that's what committees are there to do, to nut out some of these issues. I think Councillor Goldstone, you mentioned that there's lots of different ideas when we had a very solid report and a very solid officer's recommendation. And after hearing the debate, I think that's where we need to sit. I know the committee has met, but I think going back to the Evanston Gardens Library, staff can assist and start working up and start dealing with any challenges or barriers that might be there before it comes to council. I think that as far as toilet access, I would think that you'd be able to get a key and have a memorandum of understanding so you actually get access to those toilets in the library, even though the library might be closed. So there's all sorts of opportunities to access those toilets with a reasonable sort of framework around that. So I think that's not insurmountable. I think that's quite easy to overcome. I think the southern urban areas are a growing area. You've also got Hillier Park. You've got land developments happening all around there. You've got a school. You've got a bus. I think there's enormous opportunity for that area and that piece of land. And I'll be very keen to see where that goes. So I'll present the officer's recommendation and hope people support it. Thank you.
Councillor Goldstone? Second? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've done a full circle, which is good. I'm happy to support this. It was the preference listed in the report. You look at the pros and cons within the report, speak for themselves. So yeah, I'm happy with this recommendation. I'm happy to support it.
All right. Any other speakers? Councillor Tooley? Question?
Linda, when you prepared your report, and you struck off a number of sites because you said they were in floodplains, did you consult with Mr. Viney, who is the head of that department? He deals with planning, he deals with floodplains. Did you consult with him in producing your report?
Through the chair, no, we didn't consult directly with Mr. Viney, but members of his team were involved in the internal staff meeting that we had regarding the list of sites.
Did you specifically ask about the ability to put infrastructure on floodplains, or did you just assume that you could not put anything on a floodplain?
Through the chair, we didn't directly investigate any further into putting a community garden on a floodplain.
Yep.
Herein lies the problem that could have been solved, and I'm disappointed that you didn't know to speak with me. I know you spoke with the Mayor and Councillor Fraser, and I did try to communicate with you today, but I would have loved to have been part of that discussions and meet with your group and talk all of this through. And I wish that our officers would speak to each other too, because that's why we have them. Because the rules are quite clear that you can build on a floodplain, quite significant structures on a floodplain. And we have to remember that the structures that a community garden are looking to put up are minor. And as I said again, in an area like the top end where there is no flood, it's just water creep, nothing is going to get washed away in a flood. If it did come, it wouldn't. So I'll reiterate that point. If we support this, we're actually supporting something that we've heard the group say they do not want. They had not been able to meet at the time the officer's report was put. They have met recently, and they've come tonight with a proposal that say, please do not put us out there. They've said that we could please have it at Humphrey George location. We heard them say we'd actually prefer Goose Island, but we didn't think it was even a possibility because people used the scary word floodplain, and so we gave up on even pursuing that. So to pass this motion tonight is to go against what the group wants. It is also too far away. It is doomed to failure. Tucked in at the back of the Emerson Garden, we have an area there called deferred urban, which has not yet been developed. We don't have a lot of housing or a lot of people living in that area. The closest is when you come further towards Gawler, you get people again on normal house blocks, not high density, no nursing homes, none of the density of the people that might want to go to that sort of area. And you'll be asking to put this in a place where the group doesn't want it. And it will not be used. People will not access it. It's too far out the way. You don't drive to a community garden. You wander to a community garden. One of my favourite community gardens in the Henley Beach area is built on the old Torrens floodplain. At the very end of all of the washing down since Adelaide was established in 1839. And someone on this council would have us believe that every toxin in the world would be there. It has one of the most flourishing gardens. And you know what? Most of them are on raised garden beds because that's what people need, because as they get older, they like them at that waist level. So you put appropriate dirt and wicking beds and all sorts of things in. They're not always in the ground. But if they were in the ground at Goose Island, they would be in very healthy soil. Because if you look upstream from us, there's not a lot of agriculture upstream. We come down from the Wirra area and it comes down there. Most of it is native area. And there's not a lot of nasty agriculture in there. So this sort of inflammatory, emotional myth about the soils, the soils. I guarantee you could test those soils, they will be fantastic. Milton Vidulers would come out and run a test for us at very little cost. And most of the garden beds are going to be raised garden beds if we had it there. But this is the worst area to put it. Out of the way, where there is no density of living, no one will drive there, you're doing it to failure, and it's not what the very people want. How can we possibly support that? My proposal is this: if this gets pushed down tonight, I will promise you, I will put a motion on notice to the next council meeting when there are more people here that will put forward a proposal that it goes to Goose Island, and with the greater number of people here and Mr. Viney speaking to this meeting to tell us that that is okay, we have a great chance of it getting ahead, and it would be the premium place for one. And it'll pave the way for the community to embrace it centrally in the town. There's my promise if this gets lost.
So, yeah, and just either way, this will go to council to be debated because this is a recommendation to council and not us deciding it here. So you can look forward to potentially a fourth or fifth debate which is very exciting, Councillor Koch.
Look, I'll be supporting this. I think it gets back to the soils. I'll just read to you the science behind what you can find in urban soils. And common contaminants in urban soils include pesticide, petroleum products, radon, asbestos, lead, chromium, copper, arsenate and creosote. In urban areas, soil contamination is largely caused by human activity. Some examples are manufacturing, industrial dumping, land development, local waste deposits and excessive pesticide and fertiliser use. Heavy car and truck traffic contaminates soil and can be a single car. You have even noticed. So what that is saying, in urban areas where Goose Island is, there they are potentially the contaminants that you'll have on that site. Also, remember that used to be a series of plug holes where they put industrial waste. My concern is, and I'm concerned about your health, my concern here is that you may be looking at a site that's going to be inundated with flood water where the water stops and it doesn't stop, so all those nasties actually settle down, because that's what happens. That's how heavy metals get deposited in areas. For example, in reed beds, for example. Eventually the reed beds, you have to take the reed beds out because it's filled with heavy metals. And those heavy metals come from the road, etc., off the cars. So I'm concerned that somebody's advocating an area where the soils are contaminated. We know that it's a plug hole there. It was an industrial site. They used to fill it for their rubbish. We know that other areas in our community where there were those sites, we say to those people, you cannot dig a hole, you cannot do anything on those sites. We know that, and I'm very concerned that somebody thinks they can just wave their hand and that all goes away, which is what's happening tonight. They're just going to wave their hand and everything's going to go away. Well, it's not. The science says it won't. That area is probably, has contaminants, we know that, because we've actually done a survey on it, and the potential of what comes down the river in a flood I've just read out to you all the pollutants that you'll probably have. Now, I don't think I'd want my children to be playing in an area where some might laugh at that, but I'm very concerned.
Do your chemicals stop where they are, or do they flow?
Councillor Koch is speaking. It's not an open debate.
A question, is all urban soil polluted? Because I grow vegetables.
The other thing I'd like to point out is...
What's it legalised?
Councillor Tilly, I think you. I think you're just
I'm going to use this gavel.
You've been like Trump rules. Now the difference is, this is horticulture 101. Plants are different to pergolas. Pergolas sit in the ground, they're concreted in the ground, and they sit there. Plants are living organisms that interact with the soil and the air and the water, and they take up nutrients and they take up stuff in the soil, okay? This is horticulture 101. So if somebody's saying that it's all right to put stuff in the floodplain, well, okay, you might be able to put a pergola in at the set at 1 in 100, but I tell you what, you'd be very, very careful about what you're planting and what you're eating in that area, because that area is going to be inundated with water, with all those nasties. Now, I'm very concerned if somebody thinks they can just wave their hand and they all go away, because they won't. And and you have to do a soil test, and they're quite expensive. But I was disturbed, so I didn't have my 5 minutes, because I was disturbed by, Mr. Pseudo-Trump here.
Now that is a direct insult.
You are?
I've just been called pseudo-Trump. Now,
Well,
you have to tell me to retract that or throw that. That is an absolute insult.
well, I think that is against the.
Okay.
But he already finished talking.
Yes. It was robust debate.
So.
Can't be insulted. What you're ruling up, that is an absolute insult to call me. He doesn't even call me Councillor Tully. He calls me Trump.
Yeah. No. I'm ruling that it is unacceptable.
I'd like it in the minutes, please. That Councillor Koch is sanctioned.
Uphold. That's the word.
Could you put in there? I said I called him pseudo-Trump, because I think that's important, so the community knows how his behaviour is.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it's not.
The point of order has been upheld. That will go in the minutes as I understand it. But is there anyone else who would like to speak? You have a question, Councillor Tooley?
I live in an urban area, and I'd like that minutes about me. He's upheld the minutes too, that he's not allowed to call me pseudo Trump. It's got to be in there. I live in an urban area. The people at the end of the road down at Goose Island live in an urban area. Floods and soil don't just suddenly stop because of a fence, but we have an expert saying that these incredible nasties kill you. Is he saying that they're localised to that little area?
So who's this?
Or
who's this a question to?
Because the word was urban soil. Are all urban soils contaminated? Because I grow vegetables and I'm now feeling unsafe. Am I being poisoned? Are the people down at Goose Island being poisoned?
Oh, all right. We have a formal motion. All right. So the formal motion that the motion be put. All right. And it's been seconded by Councillor Little. All those in favour? All against? It has been carried. So now we're going to go ahead to the motion. All those in favour? All those against? It is carried. What's that? Division. Mayor has called a division. So all those in favour, please stand up. All those in favour are Councillor Kosh, Councillor Goldstone, Councillor Little, Councillor Hughes, the Mayor, and do I vote? Yep, and I'll put my hand up. And then all those against, Councillor Tooley. And so that is carried. And if you have some further things to say, it should be coming to the upcoming council meeting, so you can speak at the public open forum there if you'd like. That was.
You reckon?
That was good. That was a good discussion. So we'll move on to the next item. Feel free to stay. I find it a very entertaining meeting, but you don't have to stay if you don't want to. I was excited to use the gavel for the first time.
Thanks for
thanks for your time. So the next motion, the Mayor has a conflict.
That's correct. If I can, I'll declare perceived conflict. A family member is on the executive of the Gawler Amateur Swimming Club, so I'll deal with that conflict by leaving the room. Thank you.
All right. So there is the representative here to present? We'll come up to the microphone. Welcome.
Hello. So my name is Therese Willis. I'm the president of the Gawler Amateur Swimming Club. So I guess first of all, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, for letting me come and talk to you this evening. There are a couple of requests that we're making, and there's a lot of information in the report. So I just thought I might separate what we're here for, just to see if I can make it just a little simpler and easier to understand, because again, there is a lot of information in the report. So as most of you may know, we are a community group. You know, we're quite small. We've been based at the swimming pool since 1962. We're a swimming club, and our mission is to coach swimmers and get them up to a competitive swimming standard. We have swimmers that compete across country, regions, some go to states. We've got Special Olympians. We've got quite a range of different swimmers. So there are two requests in the report tonight. There's a request relating to our Carnival Hire. So we have a licence with council, and we've had a licence for some time. And under the licence currently, we pay lane hire fees, we pay a Carnival Hire fee. So we have a carnival once a year. And just to be clear, the pool is only open in summer, so we're just there 5 months of the year from October to March. So we run a carnival once a year, and our carnival's coming up on November 29th. And we have a Carnival Hire fee, and it's not a lot. it's only around $320. But really, the issues at hand relate to COVID, and unfortunately, it's been a little bit of a tough year. With Swimming SA, a lot of clubs had to stop swimming when COVID hit. And so what's happened is this summer they've really kind of put all the carnivals together. And that might not sound like a big deal, but our carnival would normally be the only carnival that weekend. Instead, on the Saturday, there's a carnival in Norwood. There's a Twilight Carnival that Starplex are hosting in Tea Tree Gully. And then there's also another carnival on the day of our carnival in the Adelaide Hills. So we are expecting a lot less swimmers. We're not really sure how many we'll end up with. But at this point, we have like 79 swimmers who have entered, which is quite down. We would normally give out medals at our carnival, you know, for all the kids that come first, second or third. But because it tends to cost around $1,000, we're not even doing that this year. We would normally have a raffle. We're very grassroots, you know, we have a barbecue, but because local businesses have been struggling, it's been quite difficult just to get things from local businesses. So we're not even going down the raffle route. We're really just hopefully, fingers crossed, going to break even. We would love to make a little bit of money because we do have quite a few costs relating to the carnival itself and then just our season. So I guess our first request is a special request this year to not have to pay the $320 hire fee to council, and we would like you to consider that as part of this, you know, COVID-related impact that we're having. We normally always pay it. We've always paid it in past years, and you know, I expect next year we'll pay it and it won't be a problem. But this year it is a bit of an add-on. We're just finding, for example, Starplex give us their dolphin starting system, which instead of having a gun, we have this electronic system. It's only $250, but you know, they're considering waiving that fee. We're just trying to really save money where we can. So that's our first request to council, which is in the report. The second request is a little bigger, and it's been ongoing for some time. COVID has kind of, I guess, put us in a position where we can't really not come to council and address this issue. So under our licence agreement, we, as a club, we hire lanes. And I should just back up a little bit and give you a little bit of history. And I think, again, there is a bit of history in the report. So around 10 years ago, the club was paying a flat fee of $10,000 to council for lane hire, which is a significant amount because we have around 40 or 50 children. We had about one season left before we were going to basically fold. It was quite onerous and we just couldn't sustain it. So we came to council, I think that was in 2013, and to council's credit, they were very understanding. They listened to us and agreed that we should move to a lane hire fee. I think council was open to changing how they dealt with different community groups and sporting bodies and what have you. So that gave us the ability to get ourselves back on track, be able to pay all our costs and not be so close to having this financial edge that we were on. 3 years after that, in 2016, council or the pool management decided that they wanted to move to a different arrangement and wanted us to pay season passes as well. So what that has done is it's added this extra layer of fees onto what we already pay for lane hire. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't sound like a lot when I tell you how much we're paying, but it's quite significant for us. So last year, and I would say, you know, we don't use the pool exclusively. We hire lanes and we train from 6 till 7:30. The pool is actually open, so there's lap swimmers, there's other people there, although by 6 o'clock it doesn't tend to be terribly busy, although I would add that the other night it was super busy because it was really hot and there were lots of people, which was awesome. But, and I have to stay on point, otherwise I'll lose my focus. So we use the pool around, I think it's about 10 and a half hours a week that we use for lane hire, and we have a schedule, and it's 4 lanes on a Monday and 1 lane on a Tuesday, and sometimes we have 2 lanes in the morning. So we have a schedule, and that's all fine. So we pay lane hire, and last year we paid $3,419 to council just for the lane hire. On top of that, with the mandatory season passes, there was also a cost to the club of $1,896. So again, I guess, in the grand scheme of things for council, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it actually ends up being around $100 per family member. And I should also state that the season pass, the way that the council works out their fees, they have a commercial rate, and then we get what is called a concession because we're a community group. So they charge us a reduced fee on our season pass, but what's happening is the club is paying for lanes, which we're happy to pay for, but now we're also paying just to get into the pool to swim in the lanes that we're paying for. And season passes really, when somebody buys a season pass, it's because they want to come to the pool and they want to swim, and it's really more of a recreational pass. Most of our swimmers are coming just to train. So I think for council, they're very big on user pay, but really the season passes aren't being used in the way that, I think they're meant to be used. And that is that if someone wants to be a lap swimmer, they'll get a season pass and they'll do laps, and they'll come in 5 days a week, or they'll come in at night, or, our kids, the median age is like 12. The cost to join the swimming club, there are quite a few fees. There's our governing body, which is Swimming SA, so that's $109. There's our fee, which includes lane hire, the costs of running the club. There's also a coaching component, which is around $250. So that's $309. And then there's also another Swimming SA component for the parents. So even before they've paid for this season pass, they're already looking at close to $350, nearly $400. And it's really, people are starting to struggle, and because we want people to be able to get into the pool, we're making the season pass a priority and saying, look, you've got to fill out this form and you've got to pay the season pass component. And then they're coming in to us and they're saying, look, we need to go on a payment plan because, it's becoming a little bit too much. If you have more than one swimmer, which most families do, it's around $800 just for them to swim for 5 months just with our club. So we would really like to have the season pass component actually voided. We understand that council, again, this is a concession situation. There are subsidies. I understand, council couches their fees in a way that there's an in-kind component and what have you. But for our members, it's becoming a real struggle, and we won't survive if we can't recruit and we can't have a robust swimming club. And we also don't want people to struggle just to pay to come and swim with us. I think, we're a volunteer-run organisation. We work very hard, and I would hate to see us fold. So we're actually here to ask that the season passes are no longer mandatory. I think, if you want to offer members of our club a concession on a season pass, that's fantastic, but I think it should be an option. I don't think it should be this mandatory requirement that before we've even swum and done any training, there's already a cost just to get into the facility. So that's basically the gist of why I'm here. I do have somebody here, John Lyons, who was a swimmer with our club many years ago, who would also like to speak. But yeah, look, that's essentially, the issue for us. It's starting just to get a little bit expensive for people, and we want to make sure that swimming is still something that people can afford to do. It's a national sport. It's really important, and, we hope that you agree.
So I think we've got questions. Councillor Goldstone.
Therese, was it?
Yes, hello.
I guess you've seen the officer's recommendations of the report, with the different options in the recommendation. Have you had a chance to look at that? Mm-hmm. It's a little confusing. What of the recommendations listed, what are you actually your preference?
So I guess they've given you some options. Our option is probably not there. So what they're saying is, you can either give us a 100% concession and swimmers get a season pass and they don't pay for it. That's actually not what we're asking for. What we're saying is that once upon a time, we used to pay for lanes. We never used to pay to get into the pool. So we would like to remove the season pass component being a mandatory requirement. We are more than happy if council wants to offer season passes to our members as a discount. And, you know, people might take that up if it's an option. At the moment, it's a mandatory requirement. So I think the options that they're giving you is that it doesn't approve our request, and our request is that, you know, we don't want this component in our licence agreement that states that every member of our club has to buy a season pass from the Gawler Aquatic Centre. I would like us to be able to rent lanes, as we do, and pay those. And I might add, we've always paid, we've never defaulted. I think we've been a pretty good stakeholder when it comes to that kind of thing. I would love our members to have the option to get a concession on their season passes. I just don't think, you know, making it something that they must do is fair, given that they're going in there just to train.
Sure. So comments from...
Yeah, so through the chair, just to clarify, that is an option that's in the report. Its recommendation, it's the second of the number 2s. It approves a request from the swimming club for...
May show it on the screen.
It's that one in the bottom section, centre of screen now. So approving the 100% concession for members to enter at their training times.
Does that cover what you were looking for?
I mean, you know, yes, we don't want our members to have to pay for a season pass. That's correct. Yeah.
Yep.
So through the chair, yes. So we've got a process we need to go through here. We need to decide which of the option 1s members would like to go with, then which of the option 2s, and hearing the discussion then the preferred option 2 was that one that was just highlighted. And then we need to also consider point 3.
Councillor Koch?
Thanks. Look, I've got a question for Bryce, if that's possible. Okay, Natasha. When the swimming club is there, we have our staff are there, aren't they? Because from memory, I asked this question a couple of years ago and I was told that we have to have staff there for life-saving, to manage the chlorination unit, to put the cover on and to lock up. I think that was what was said a couple of years ago. So we're paying somebody, we're paying 1 or 2 staff, I'm not sure, to be there while the swimming club is there. Is that right? Can you go for that?
Yes, through the chair. Yes, that is correct. However, Therese was correct in that they don't get exclusive use of the facility. It is open to the general public, but they have their lanes for hire.
Yeah, just to clarify, but from what I can remember, our times were extended so that they could do that, and then as a bit of a quid pro quo, we said other people could come. But we've actually extended the hours to fit in with the swimming club, from my memory, and we're providing. How many staff? 1 or 2 staff?
Through the chair, 2 staff minimum. We did extend the times. You are correct. There was a report that went up.
Yeah, 2, 3 years ago, I think.
About 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That did extend the close time from 7 p.m. till 7:30.
Yes, and that was ostensibly to fit in with the swimming club, and yeah, so it is a cost to us, an extra cost to council to provide that. Not only the lanes, but also the supervision while the swimming clubs are there. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Can I speak to that as well? Am I allowed to? Yeah. So once upon a time at 6 o'clock, the pool would close and the club would come in and there wouldn't be any lifeguards. We would run our training session. We would put the pool cleaner in. We would put the covers on and we would lock up, and we still paid council a significant amount of money to do that. Council then decided that they did want to have lifeguards, but they also wanted to extend the opening hours to the public. So it wasn't just so that we could train. We were already training from 6 till 7. They opened till 7:30 so that the public could come in, they could have lap swimmers. So I don't know that that's entirely correct that they did that to enable us to swim. We were already swimming for probably 50 years. We've always swam from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m.
I just want to clarify. I mean, I did ask that question 3 years ago, and I was told that the swimming club couldn't be there on their own because of the life-saving, the dosing, the cover and the lock-up. And there was actually an incident 2 years ago, I think, where there was a malfunction of the dosing system. And luckily we actually had a council officer there who understood the procedure and shut it down and made it safe. So there was an absolute reason why we did it. Is that right? Oh, that happened 2 years ago, I think. Is that right?
Through the chair, just to provide some historical clarity around the situation, that yes, the swimming club did utilise the facility by themselves at a time in history. It was then assessed through a number of factors that the risk to council wasn't amenable. We weren't able to take on that risk on an ongoing basis. And so that is when around the time when the changes did occur, where council staff and lifeguards were on site to do all the things that you've mentioned in regards to the actual operation of the pool facility. There does need to be a level of qualification of staff on site at every moment that the pool's open. So that occurred in regards to council staff being on site, and that was around the time when the facility did close at 6 p.m. Through the conversations that were had with the amateur swimming club around the ongoing use and the time of their use, which was stretching beyond 6 o'clock, it was decided that the best outcome for everybody, the club, council and the community, was to extend the public open times of the facility. So it did allow for the swimming club to be there at a time when the facility was open to the public. It didn't require additional staff to be there wholly and solely for the swimming club exclusively, but also did allow the community to use the facility at that time as well.
All right, do we have further questions, or Councillor, or are you going to move it? All right, we've got, you got a question, Councillor Toole? Go ahead.
And I'm sorry I missed your first part of your presentation, but some very important information I had to engage in. Which of these proposals, you've read this, which is your preferred one? Which is the one you want us to vote on?
Okay. I think that the actual options are probably not completely what we are not completely aligned with what we're looking at. So I don't really want to come to council and say we want 100% concession on season passes and our members still get season passes and get to enter the pool anytime they like. What we're really asking for here is that when our swimmers come in at 6 to train, that they're not required to pay to get in. We would still like any members who would like the option of buying a season pass with the concession to be able to do that. I think the issue is, and I know it's a little confusing, most of our swimmers only come down to the pool to train with the club. So they're not really utilising a season pass per se. They're not coming down and swimming outside of training times and coming down in the morning. You know, they're really coming down just to train and be coached. So, you know, we absolutely don't want a mandatory requirement for a season pass to be applied to the swimming club. However, I think it would be reasonable to say that if people who want to come to the swimming pool outside of training times, if they have an opportunity to buy a pass at the concession rate, they should have the option to do that. And that would be something we could promote. You know, if you join the club, you're also able to buy a season pass at this reduced rate. You know, we might find that people, if it's an option, will do that. As it is, because it is an obligation, again, you know, we have different levels of people. Our swimmers, our families are not wealthy. We have single mothers, we have, you know, again, families that have more than one swimmer. And so you know, when people ask you to go on a payment plan, it's an indication that they're struggling. And I think even though you look at the season pass and you think, well, you know, it's a concession, it's not that much. For a family, it's around $100 extra on top of their fees, and it's starting to become just difficult for people. And so we really feel like it's important to come back to council and say, look, can you reconsider this? So I guess when I look at the options, yes, we want 100% concession rate, but, you know, we really just want our children to be able to come in and train without having to pay to get in, essentially. We would very much like to be able to promote and spruik a discount on a season pass if people would like to have that. But the issue for us is that it is mandatory at this time. That's really the issue. And I'm not sure if that, covers all the recommendations or not, and I apologise for that.
Yeah. Yep.
Another question. If this was passed and we took off made it 100% concession, would that also flow over to the other swimming club? So it's actually 2 swimming clubs?
Through the chair, at this time, no. We've only presented the request from the Gawler Amateur Swimming Club. As per our normal policy, we only present the group that's come to us. So obviously, we understand that Starplex would probably understand this has happened to make their own request, but we haven't approached them separately because it's not our normal procedure.
All right. And so you'd like to move? Or what exactly would you like to move?
Good question. I'll give it a crack. First, number 1. The number 2 that David mentioned, and point 3. If we can bundle those together as a bit of a discussion, I think it covers most of what they want. But
we'll just get it sorted out up on the screen here because it's.
Councillor Davies. Yep. Just through the chair, with that option that Councillor Goldstone has moved, if we do want to still apply the 75% concession, if a member wishes to sign up to that, we'd need to add that to that recommendation because it's not clear, that's all. We're just missing that sentence.
All right, and you want to add that one? Yep. All right, we'll just get that added in. Yeah, cool. And then we've got 2.3, so just make that second one a 4. You all good? So basically what we've done is we've added another point about eligibility for the 75% concession. And that's all good. All right. Which case, Kelvin, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just briefly. I hope that covers everything that you were talking about.
Yeah, thank you so much. It does. Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to put this up because it does cover everything that they were talking about. In the end, the cost is not substantial. So happy to recommend it.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Little, do you want to speak? No. Any other discussion? Councillor Kosh?
Look, unfortunately, I'll be voting against this because I do remember the discussion we had 3 years ago or so when we talked about all this. And it got to a point where we couldn't be comfortable with the risk if we didn't have staff there. So that was the life-saving, the chemical dosing, then putting on the cover and then securely locking. So we said we had to have people. And then we sort of said, okay, we'll extend the hours and whatever, but we really did it for the swimming club. That's what we did. We really actually did it for the swimming club. And we sort of had this, this of a bit that sort of, was, made people feel happier, I suppose. This quid pro quo there, this balancing act. And my concern is that the group already has it, like for the juniors, it's already 75% and it's $46. And I think that's probably not overly onerous, hopefully. But in effect, council, if you think about it, council is actually paying their staff so another group can do their training. That's sort of what's happening, in roundabout terms. And I just don't think it's a very good look when you can say that council is sort of subsidising another group to train when we don't actually do that with any other sporting group. Maybe it's just because, the water is quite dangerous, but no other group in our town gets their training subsidised by council. That's the sticking point for me. That's the only thing for me. If we sent out a safety officer to the cricket training, the footy training and whoever, I'd say, okay, that's fine. But this is a case where we're actually paying people to be there, ostensibly so that the club can train. And so they pay for the infrastructure, they pay for the lab, the infrastructure and the water and everything else. But I think they should pay also for the fact that we've got staff there, and it's only a small amount spread over a whole season. So that's just the position I've got. I just find it difficult to reconcile that we would be paying for another group to train. That's my concern. So I can't support it. I understand the reasoning behind it. I understand all that, but I'm just, that's the concern I have. So unfortunately, I can't support it. Thank you.
Do we have any other discussion? Councillor Hughes and Councillor Tooley?
I'm actually going to support it because I am concerned about the sustainability of the swim club and the fact that numbers are down. So I think it's important, and I think with COVID, the club has been hit pretty hard. I think maybe in future, future years, it won't be as generous as this, but I think at the moment it is important to help the swim club out. I've been at the pool recently after 6 o'clock, and there's only a small number of squad swimmers in a couple of lanes. The rest of the pool is full of other people, so it's well used between 6 and 7:30. The car park's full. I only go when it's warm, but the pool's fantastic. But I do think we need to support the swim club. I do think that our other clubs, like the footy clubs and stuff like that, the bowls club, they've got club rooms, they've got grounds. I think they get a really good deal from council and are able to make some profit from their facilities and stuff, where the swim club doesn't make anything from the shop or anything like that, and it hasn't been able to fundraise this year because of COVID, and businesses haven't been able to donate for raffles and all that sort of stuff. So I think on this occasion, I think we should be generous and support this motion, but it may be something negotiated in a couple of years' time again, but at this time I think it's important that we build this club and help the club, so I'm happy to support it.
Councillor Tilley?
Thank you. We've come from a very wordy recommendation to that. Are you guys happy with that? do you walk away tonight if that gets passed? Do you walk away and say, we got what we were hoping for, or it's the best outcome we can get?
I'm being advised that it's not, I shouldn't be asking that sort of thing during the debate. Clarification.
So through the chair, this debate is between elected members. We can't have external parties weighing into the debate at this point in time. The opportunity for questions has already elapsed. We're in the debate process for that. So through the chair, questions to officers in the report but not out to the community.
So would you just like to speak in any case to the motion?
Look, that sort of comment to me is part of the whole problem with red tape. You know, we're supposed to be making good decisions, and this decision affects this group. And me saying to them after we've farted around with so many variations to simply then say, is this the sort of motion that you like? To me is a reasonable, have we got it right? That's what I'm simply asking them. Of all of the options, have we got the one that you wanted? To me seems to be a reasonable question.
Yep.
Through the chair, just to clarify, that question was actually asked. Unfortunately, Councillor Tooley, you weren't in the room at the time. So that question was asked, and this is the outcome of the answer to that question.
Except for the fact that I sat here for the last 15 minutes and witnessed.
Oh, sorry.
I've sat here for the last 15 minutes and witnessed it moving around, you walking over here. So it has morphed and changed. So I think my question was a very reasonable one. So I'll now speak to the motion. I think maybe they're winking and nodding or something, but I think it's going to give them what they want. Therefore, I'm happy, because my view is that we as a council are here to support our community. And I look at this group and I look at what they serve, an amateur swimming group that gives kids and local people the opportunity to get in a healthy pursuit, and to not let red tape and too much money get in the way. And what I heard here from Bryce and others is that there was a time where there was a degree of trust that said, you know what, we can even keep the cost down because you can put the covers on and you can do that. And then here we are, you know, in the nanny state where we throw up as many rules as we can and make it as hard as we can for people that, oh no, you know, we're going to draw this rule and this regulation in that you've got to have this many people watching and that guy wearing a red shirt watching with his vest on and all the rest of it. We seem to put more and more red tape in, and we hide behind, you know, litigation and red tape. I reckon our job as council is to actually get rid of as much of that as we can, and to use common sense, and to support people getting on rather than putting up hurdles and barriers. So it's disappointing that we've come to this, but this seems to be where we're at, and therefore there were costs associated. So I think what this motion is doing is trying to give a little bit back to offset some of those costs and not let the burden be totally on an amateur swimming group. So happy to support the motion.
Great. So would the mover like to close the debate?
Yeah, just quickly. I think the motion that's up there now does cover what they were asking for. So I just put it to members that we support it, that's all.
We'll put the vote. All those in favour? All those against? It is carried. And someone, yep, Councillor Tooley has brought a call to division. So all those in favour, please stand. All those in favour, Councillor Goldstone, Councillor Tooley, Councillor Little, Councillor Hughes, and myself. And all those against are Councillor Kosh. So can we bring the Mayor back in? Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you so much. We'll see you at the pool.
Okay, so the next one is 7.4, Aquatic and Recreation Services Overview, just a noting report. Do we have Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, very happy to note it, and yeah, I think aquatic. Oh, sorry, it wasn't me. It was, but yeah, I think the pool is looking fantastic. The change rooms, the showers, everything's really working really well, and yeah, even when I drive past on the main road, I've been noticing the car park really full all the time. So it's great to see it being used, and yeah, commend the staff involved and everything else, and the lifeguards in their new uniforms and all the rest of it look really good and doing a good job.
And do you have a seconder? Councillor Little, do you want to speak? No. Do we have any other discussion? In which case I'll move the motion. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. 7.5, Home Assist Disability Funding Update. Do we have a mover for this one? The Mayor. Second, Councillor Hughes. Would you like to speak to it? No? Would you like to speak to it? Do we have any discussion? In which case I'll move the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The Mayor, happy to move this one. Would you like to speak to it?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks, staff, for the report. We continue to support the Fringe. It is an exceptional event. We are able to deliver this event really well.
Just to clarify, we're not on the Fringe one, are we?
Oh, which one are we on? Oh, oops, disability. My mistake. I went too far. 7.6.
Would you still like to move
yeah,
this motion? Okay.
I'm happy to move that one too. I don't need to speak to this one. That's fine.
Do we have a seconder for disability access? Councillor Hughes, would you like to speak to it?
Just briefly, it's very important for our town to be accessible, and you know, we do have issues with our footpaths and things like that, which we're addressing as best we can, and with any new builds and everything else, making sure they're disability compliant is something we're doing and spending a lot of money on. So I think it's important we continue this work.
Councillor Koch.
Yeah, I think it's a very good report. Happy to support it. In particular, it talks about when we any facilities and upgrade that it actually adheres to this disability access inclusion plan. So that's very important. That whenever we're doing anything, you know, we look at this plan and we make sure that everything is disability accessible. So it's very important. So I'm very glad to see that coming through. Thank you.
Any other discussion? In which case, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. And now we move on to the Fringe update. Mayor, would you like to move the motion?
So just as I said before, ditto, it's fantastic. The Fringe is it's becoming a must-see event in our town. It's delivered really, really well. We've got a slightly different format this year, but I think it'll work very, very well. Yeah, we've got a brand new Walk of Place. Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. Thank you.
Any discussion? Sorry, I need to second it. You'd like to second, Councillor Koch?
Yep, I'm happy to second it. I'm just a little bit concerned that it's still $28,000 for one night. But I think that's right, isn't it? $28,000 for one night. Maybe we can look at how we can change it up a little bit to make it less.
Yeah.
Sort of half of what it used to be when it was three days.
If we could maybe get staff to just clarify about so the breakdown of the costs and what made it not necessarily, you know, as much cheaper as Councillor Koch expected.
Through the chair, that cost of $28,500 does include $13,200 of in-kind support, and within the report you'll see that I have broken it down to show I guess the additional costs related to having alcohol served at the event.
Yeah. So is there any other discussion? in which case I'll move the motion. All those in favour? All those against? It is carried. We move on to 7.8 library funding. Do we have a mover, Mayor, and seconded? Councillor Hughes, would you like to speak?
Thank you. Yeah, libraries continue to contribute to economic development to the tune of for every dollar, it's $2.80, which is more than 100% injection into the local economy, and that's been the case for a long, long period of time. A lot of councils realised during COVID just how important libraries were when they were all closed and nobody could go to them. And so when they were reopened, people had a renewed love and awareness of the value of public libraries. They are free spaces, they are safe spaces, they are learning spaces. There's so many popular and positive outcomes that you get from having a well-resourced library. We've invested in our libraries in the last few years and I think it's paying dividends. There's so many different spaces and activities. The library's SA, and I note the chair's on a major working group. Well done, congratulations. Always good to get on those strategic planning. Go Gawler. And the sharing. I did a webinar as part of the Greater Adelaide Region of Councils earlier in the year, and we did one specifically on the value of libraries and just how libraries are contributing to supporting people with COVID. And one of the national directors of libraries in the country said that the rest of Australia is very envious of South Australia because of our one card system, but just how we work together to collaborate and share resources. Right across Australia and South Australia, resources were shared so that people could get access to reading, online resources, and it continues that sort of revolution, the digital revolution. So I love libraries. I think they're really important spaces, and long may they continue. Let's hope that the state government actually see the light and start giving us some decent funding.
Does the seconder wish to speak? Councillor Koch.
Yeah, look, I'd love to support, I will support this. Libraries are a great catalyst for community development and activity. It's fantastic. And also for other things, like for example, through my business, I have to go and visit clients in different parts of Adelaide, and sometimes I have time between meetings, and I always end up at libraries so I can do some work. I can use the free Wi-Fi and use power. I can do some work so I can be productive over the whole day. I just want to say that some of the libraries I've been to aren't as good as ours. So yes, it's fantastic. So anyway, yeah, I'm very happy to support this motion, and good on libraries. They're fantastic. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Otherwise, I'll move the motion. All those in favour? It is carried unanimously. Next on, we move to the Essex Park and All Showgrounds Master Plan public consultation. The Mayor would like to move. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Little would like to speak.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, look, this is coming along really nicely. The other day I had the privilege of presenting to Shadow Cabinet, even though they were in the Barossa. I think our presentation was the best, just quietly. And I showcased this master plan and just how many members of sporting clubs use this precinct, and it's something like 4,670 people use just in organised sport. That's just in organised sport. That does include deck swimmers as well, but it is a significant, and interestingly, the highest participatory area is in fact the Netball Association, with 1,000 participants who play netball both winter and summer, and that's just playing. That's not supporters, coaches, officials, umpires, etc. There would be a lot more people. So it's really interesting when you start drilling down on how many people are using this precinct, and we can double that quite easily. And this precinct has the capacity to really deliver on our entire Greater Gawler area, and that includes Concordia and Hewitt when they come into Gawler. Not if, when, because they're part of our community and we embrace that, of course, and that's why we're doing things like this master plan, and that's why we need to invest in our sporting infrastructure so that we can cater for our growth. And this is just a really, really good example of how you do it in an existing beautifully planned parkland, which was planned by Colonel Lyons in 1839 or 1837, 8? Before he died? Yeah. He did. Died young. Didn't he have TB or something? Anyway, yeah, so I'll just move on from that. He was an exquisite planner, and it's still useful. It's still, his planning is still evident, and we're still celebrating and utilising that area. So, yeah, looking forward to the public feedback as it goes out to public consultation.
Councillor Little, did you want to speak? Councillor Koch?
Yes, look, I'll be supporting this. What I quite like is you'd have a boulevard access to link all the different precincts together. That's pretty good, and also building up on the riparian zone and getting some walking zones in there. Also, what I like is that at what is it, Princess Park, around that area there, you put some community gardens for activities, etc. So people can actually come and use that space instead of just for sporting clubs, but for the facilities there for people to use over the whole week. So I think that's pretty important. So it broadens the people that actually use that space. So they've got a reason to go to that space other than just organised sport. So I'm quite happy with the way it's panning out and look forward to the community feedback. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Otherwise, I will move the motion. All those in favour? Unanimously carried. Let's see, what have we got? So that's it. We've got items listed for discussion and nothing. Items listed for discussion at future meetings. Nothing. Do we have any questions on without notice? Or motions without notice? Then the meeting is closed at 9:10. What's that? Oh, yeah. Yeah.